You know that feeling when you're just done? Like, utterly, completely fed up? Well, that's exactly where I was when my phone rang a few weeks ago. It was my parents, and they were calling to ask for a significant amount of money, not for them, mind you, but for my sister, Brooke, to cover the last bit of her house payment. And instead of saying yes, or even a polite no, I did something I knew would absolutely torch our relationship. I hung up on them, pulled up a screenshot of our recent Greece vacation bill, and sent it to them with a message: "Here's where the money went. You wanted me to pay for your choices? Well, you can pay for mine." Yeah. I know. Petty. But trust me, they started it. To understand why I did something so drastic, we need to rewind a few weeks, back to Liam's birthday. My husband, Liam, you know? It was his first birthday since we got married, a big milestone for us. My parents, Richard and Susan, had actually called us up and invited us over for a family dinner party that weekend. We, naturally, assumed it was for him. I mean, what else were we supposed to think? My parents inviting us over the week of his birthday, talking about a party? We thought, oh, they're finally making an effort. This is going to be a lovely surprise. But the night of the dinner? Oh, it was a surprise, all right. Just not the one we expected. There was no cake. No singing. No happy birthday, Liam. Not even his own parents were invited, which, honestly, felt like the absolute bare minimum they could do. Liam was confused, you could see it on his face, but he just stayed quiet, being his usual polite self. I, however, could not. I pulled my parents aside, quietly, trying to keep my voice even, and asked them what was going on. That's when my mom, Susan, explained it. They had decided to host a dinner for us, yes, so Liam wouldn't feel completely left out. But they couldn't acknowledge his birthday because it was also Brooke's wedding anniversary the very next day. Those two events, apparently, were too close. So, to avoid overshadowing Brooke's big annual anniversary party, which she always makes a huge deal out of, by the way, they decided to just ignore Liam's birthday entirely. It was an unofficial, unspoken don't ask, don't tell policy, I guess. I was absolutely floored. It was ridiculous. Brooke is a grown woman. Why on earth would she feel insecure about sharing a weekend with her brother-in-law's birthday? Nobody was trying to steal her thunder. I tried to explain that to my parents, but they just shrugged, saying the dinner was almost over anyway, so there was no point in spoiling things now. I knew then and there was no reasoning with them. So, Liam and I just sat there, eating dessert in a heavy silence. I hardly spoke to anyone for the rest of the evening. We left as quickly as we politely could. On the way home, I finally spilled everything to Liam. The shock on his face turned to a quiet anger. He just couldn't understand. Even putting aside the lack of celebration, not inviting his own parents felt like such a profound insult. And all of it, just to cater to Brooke's ego. We were both so utterly disappointed. We'd planned to just have a quiet birthday like we always do, but my parents' bizarre party had messed everything up. So, instead of throwing him a party, we decided right then and there, we were going on a trip. A well-deserved break, honestly. We hadn't even splurged on our wedding. The very next week, we were off to Greece. We didn't attend Brooke's anniversary party. No one seemed to notice or care, which confirmed a lot of things for me. When we got back, we agreed we needed a break from my family. Not permanently, but low contact for a while. What they did was just weird. And honestly, it stung. We wouldn't have cared if they didn't host anything at all. But to invite us, make us think they were going to do something special, and then pull that? It was beyond petty. It felt like a deliberate slight. But that didn't stop my parents from calling me recently. Not to check in, not to ask why I'd been distant. Oh no. They needed money for Brooke. Her and Ryan had bought a house earlier that year, and they were short on their final payment. They'd asked my parents first, but my dad, Richard, is retiring soon, so they said no. Then, apparently, they decided Liam and I were their next best bet. I was stunned. I've never asked my parents or Brooke for financial help, not once. Why did they feel so comfortable asking me for a significant amount after everything? I flat out declined. I wasn't interested in helping. That's when my mom, Susan, started. She called me selfish. She brought up me missing Brooke's anniversary party, which, remember, they hadn't cared about at the time. Then she started accusing Liam, saying he was isolating me, turning me against my real family. And then came the kicker. They said Liam and I were ungrateful, especially after they'd gone out of their way to celebrate Liam's birthday so nicely last month. That was it. That's when I snapped. The nerve! To twist that whole insulting charade into some act of generosity. I hung up on her. And that's when I put together that screenshot, the one of our Greece trip expenses, and sent it to them. They were blowing up my phone, trying to call me back, texting me to pick up. 20 minutes later, that picture went out. My message was simple: I'm so sorry, but I can't help you out. You see, because you let me down with how you celebrated Liam's birthday, I had to make it up to him with this trip. So, if you want someone to blame, look in the mirror. If you'd acknowledged his birthday instead of being petty and childish, maybe none of this would be happening, and I would have gladly helped Brooke. But now? You're on your own. It was petty, I know. But they started it. They were the ones who refused to acknowledge Liam's birthday, even after inviting us over, just because Brooke's anniversary was the next day. After acting like that, I don't know why they expected anything different from me. It wasn't even an ask, it was an expectation, an entitlement. And I just can't deal with that kind of behavior. My parents are now demanding an apology. Brooke, who hadn't spoken to me in a year, suddenly reappeared to tell me I'd gone too far and needed to apologize and mean it. But honestly, I don't feel a shred of regret. Liam agrees. He said, "You're just returning the favor after how they treated you." And he's right. The way they spoke to me, the things they accused Liam of, it was unacceptable. This whole situation opened my eyes to a lot of things. Brooke has always been their clear favorite, ever since we were kids. I never really had a problem with it, but after she got married a few years ago, she just changed. She became distant, self-centered. And this whole birthday fiasco just cemented what I'd always known: they prioritize her above everything and everyone. A couple of weeks later, my Aunt Patricia called me. She and I are close, she's my dad's youngest cousin. And she told me my parents had been bad-mouthing me to everyone in the family, crying about how Liam had brainwashed me, taken me away from them. Everyone was apparently sympathizing with them. That's why they hadn't been hounding me for an apology, they were too busy orchestrating a smear campaign. They were even telling people to bring me back to my senses. Suddenly, all those random checking-in messages from other family members made sense. I hadn't realized I was being targeted. But now I knew. Liam and I decided we couldn't let it stand. We weren't going to talk to my parents directly, it was clearly pointless. Instead, with Patricia's help, we created a group text with everyone my parents had likely contacted. I laid everything out. I explained about Liam's birthday, my parents' refusal to acknowledge it, their absurd reasoning, the Greece trip, and then their demands for money, the accusations against Liam. I made it clear, Liam was not the villain they were painting him as. And accusing someone of isolating their spouse from family? That's a serious allegation. People were shocked. They said they had no idea any of this had happened. They apologized for believing my parents, and I told them I didn't blame them, I'd probably believe my parents too. But I asked them to ignore anything my parents said about me or Liam from then on. I didn't tell anyone to cut ties with my parents, that's a personal choice. I just wanted to share my side of the story. Then, a couple of days later, my mom, Susan, called me from an unknown number. I picked it up, and instantly, she started screaming. "You need to stop this. You can't involve the family." Apparently, people were no longer talking to them. I just told her they started it, and they needed to own the consequences. They couldn't play the victims when they had been badmouthing Liam and me to everyone. All we did was set the record straight with the truth. And if the truth made them look bad? That wasn't my problem. She was demanding I delete the group text and apologize, claiming I'd made everything up. I told her I wasn't doing that. She hung up on me. I thought that was the end of it. But when I got home from work that evening, there they were, my parents and Brooke, waiting on my porch. Liam was already there, arguing with them. I could tell he'd just arrived too, trying to explain, but they weren't listening. They were set on being the victims. I was tired. I told them they could either leave, or I'd call the cops and things would get ugly. My mom, Susan, immediately switched to emotional manipulation. "You wouldn't call the police on your own parents. We're family. We can talk this out." I looked her right in the eye. "I am family," I said. "And if you want to be treated like family, start acting like it." I told her I was done pretending none of this happened. This just showed me how badly they'd treated me my whole life, always prioritizing Brooke. I wasn't going to put up with it anymore. I gave them a final choice: leave, or the cops would make them. Grumbling and whining, they eventually left. It wasn't an ideal ending, but honestly, I was done. I'm only going to prioritize the people who prioritize me, and that's Liam, a few other family members, and my friends. Fast forward a year. It's been a wild ride. 2 weeks ago, I found out I'm pregnant. Liam and I are absolutely thrilled. We've been trying for a while, and our little family is finally growing. I posted the announcement on social media last night. Brooke actually reached out to congratulate me, which, honestly, felt like an olive branch. I was cordial back to her, even though we haven't properly spoken in a year. As for my parents, Richard and Susan? No word. No congratulations. Nothing. But you know what? I didn't expect anything from them, and I don't have any complaints. I'm happy with where my life is right now. What would you have done in my shoes?